If the war is actually going the way that the press portrays it, we won't have former Ukrainian beauty queen posing in beautiful photographs with a gun. They would have time for that. They would have time for that. Hey guys, welcome to the fourth episode of our discussion on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And I am Udoka Abdulkur, aka Udala Talks, an international relations devotee. And very quickly on today's episode, we'll be discussing why Russia invaded Ukraine. Why did Russia invade Ukraine actually? There is a reason Russia invaded Ukraine. All right, we have heard from the US perspective, the press, and it's time for us to listen to the Russian perspective because, yeah, when two persons are having conflict, it's very safe for you to listen to both parties differently so you can reach a conclusion or a judgment, and not be biased. All right, so very quickly, we're going to examine why Russia actually invaded Ukraine. First, in December 2021, Russia claims that it had what was supposed to be like a peace talk between NATO and her allies. And in this meeting, Russia kind of explained, her concerns. To these people, the meeting was met with, total disregard and disrespect and arrogance. And it didn't work. It wasn't exactly what Russia had anticipated that it would be. And so that's it. Second, Russia claims that she invaded Ukraine to protect Russian lives, right? Now, the Donbass region, just like Crimea, was a former protectorate of Russia, but with Ukraine breaking away from the old Soviet Union, it became Ukrainian territory. All right. Now, in this Donbass region, of course, they are mostly Russian speaking people. And for the past 8 years, they've been clamoring for independence. They want an autonomy. They want to be able to govern themselves. We don't want to be part of Ukraine no more. That's what they say. All right. And, this has kind of created this long-term conflict between the Ukrainian government and the Donbass people. All right. And it has, of course, caused loss of lives, including the Russian lives and, Ukrainian lives. And so Russia is saying, let's put an end to this. Grant these people autonomy that they seek, grant them autonomy, conduct local elections, and let them choose if they want to be under Ukraine or they just want to be on their own. They want to govern themselves. And Ukraine is saying, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't give those people autonomy. We can't. And of course, if you examine Ukraine, you know that she has quite serious, valid reasons why she does not want to grant autonomy to the Donbass region. All right. I explained all of that in my previous video. If you check my previous video, you will see why Ukraine is refusing to grant autonomy to the Donbass region. All right. So Russia has no intention of invading Ukraine. It just wants to protect the Russian people in the Donbass region. All right. Now, according to President Putin, the West sponsored neo-Nazi groups to attack Russians in the Donbass region. All right, and so Putin is saying he's out to bring to account all of these Nazi groups that were sponsored by the West to attack the Donbass region, to bring them to book. All right. Number three, Russia is actually fighting to curtail NATO expansion into East Europe, especially in Ukraine. All right, because NATO expansion into Ukraine would definitely jeopardize Russia's national security, given the relationship it shares with Ukraine and the geographic location. All right, Russia is saying, I can't afford to have NATO in Ukraine. It's a national security threat, and everyone will agree that every nation takes matters of security threat very seriously. All right, Russia is saying, I do not want NATO expansion in Ukraine because as long as NATO and the EU, continues to influence Ukraine, we are not safe. Take a look at the map on the screen. The highlighted area is the United States. The US is located at the other side of the ocean and it has absolutely no threat to its territory by any big nation. Yet, you'd always find the United States going everywhere in the world creating conflict. It did it in Afghanistan during the Soviet-Afghan War, when it from behind the scenes supplied the Mujahideen with military trainings, weapons, armories, and what have you, thereby propelling the USSR into attacking Afghanistan. This was US way of curtailing the spread of communism in the region using the policy of containment. The same was applicable in Iraq, when US claimed that there was the presence of nuclear weapons in Iraq, which eventually turned out to be untrue, by the way. And US, under this excuse, invaded Iraq. Let's not even talk about Libya. Look how US devastated that country. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And now it is Ukraine. Going by this location, US has absolutely no businesses being in Ukraine, especially considering how very strategic Ukraine is to Russia. US fueling Ukraine into joining NATO simply implies that NATO can install its weapons, including nuclear weapons, in Russian borders. And Russia cannot accept this. Russia cannot accept this. Russia had a very simple demand: stay away from Ukraine. Stay away from Ukraine. But did the West listen? No. They continued to interfere with matters concerning Ukraine and Russia. More like, trying to provoke Russia or something. And Ukraine also joined in this provocation. And now what we have as Russia's invasion of Ukraine is simply Ukraine dancing to the tune of her choices and decision. All right? And it seems she's dancing to this tune alone. And very sadly too. Now, President Putin is saying that he's aware of the sanctions, but what he's doing is not for personal aggrandizement. It is for the Russian people. He says the West are trying all they can to obliterate the Russian people from the face of the earth. Probably to complete what they started in the Soviet Union in the 90s, and that he's not going to sit and watch that happen. And that is why he's doing what he is doing, to protect the Russian people, the Russian country, and especially Russia's security interest. Now, Putin says that all those funding Ukraine and granting Ukraine weapons and support, that if any of those weapons kills a Russian soldier, that those people will meet a fate far worse than anything they've ever seen. Well, that's a very serious issue there. The problem with this is that the West is very good, especially America. US is very good with public relations, and they know how to make themselves look good in public. And it's almost like whatever stance the US takes in a particular issue is the stance the whole world takes. So if US calls this good, the whole world, calls that same thing good. If US condemns it, then it's almost like the whole world already formed their opinion around whatever it is that US thinks is the problem. And that is not always true. Sometimes the media blow things out of proportion. The way they are reporting this issue, the way the West is blowing the trumpet, you think it's a full blown war, all right? But it's probably not like that yet. It's probably not like that yet. The way they are reporting, 2 persons can die in a fire, and then they'll say it's over 2,000 persons. 2,000 civilians have died in the war, and I don't know. I don't know why they do that. I don't know why 2,000 persons have died in the war. And if you watch the war very closely, you will understand that Russia is not targeting, it's not killing people. Russia is not targeting the Ukrainian citizens, no. It is bombing infrastructures. First, it was the Ukrainian airport, now the Ukrainian government house or something, you see. So it's not always, what you hear from the press is not always the case. If the war is actually going the way the media is portraying it to be, we wouldn't have the Ukrainian former beauty queen posing in beautiful photographs with a gun. They won't have time for that. They won't have time for that. All right. It is true there is war going on, but it is not as full scale as the West are blowing the trumpet. All right. They're just trying to make themselves look good and then make the East look bad. I mean, they've been doing it. That's not the first time. All right. So we must learn to not swallow everything the press shows, especially the Western press. We must not swallow everything they give us hook, line, and sinker. We must always look beyond the reports of the press. Follow history. You'll find all the answers that you are looking for in history. All right. This NATO expansion that US is doing and encroaching into Eastern Europe, particularly Ukraine. In the 18th or 19th century, US used to have a doctrine, they called it the Monroe Policy. This doctrine forbids any external interference in the American continent in matters of conflict, internal affairs, even colonization, as at the time. So US viewed any of this external interference in the American continent as a potential threat to the United States, and it was ready to go head on with anyone who dared such. Now, that was the Monroe Doctrine. The United States is doing the exact same thing it does not want to be done to it. What Russia is asking of US and NATO is very simple. Leave Ukraine alone. Because as long as you continue to venture into Ukraine, you are endangering my national security interest, given my relationship with Ukraine and the territorial location, the geographic location. So your presence in Ukraine is a threat to me. So please leave Ukraine alone. Take your NATO expansion off Eastern Europe. But did US hear? No. Did NATO listen? No. And that is why we are having the issue that we are having here. That is why we are having the issue that we are having here. US will not tolerate any external influence in in any North American state. But it will leave its own territory and go and cause trouble in another place. Why? As against what the media is portraying, Russia is not trying to take over Ukraine. If Russia wanted to do that, it would have done it long ago. Of course, the annexation of Crimea Peninsula is a typical example of what Russia is capable of. All right. So if Russia actually wanted to take over Ukraine, it would have done it long ago. So Russia is not interested in taking over Ukraine. Russia is simply protecting its territory against the US-led NATO expansion. She does not want NATO installing its weapons, including nuclear weapons, in her territory. All right. So whether you agree with President Putin or not, Putin has a very valid reason why he's doing what he is doing. Every nation in his shoe would have done same. The matter is actually very simple. US should stay away from Ukraine. Stop meddling in Ukraine's affair. Let them be. Carry your NATO expansion elsewhere. Obviously, it's not needed here because it's causing conflict. It's causing conflict. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did, and above all, that you got value. All right, and if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, this might be the best time for you to do so. And on our next video, we will be discussing some of the basic misconceptions of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss that. Please subscribe to the channel. Subscription is completely free. Turn on your notification. Give this video a thumbs up. And make sure you don't miss our subsequent videos, all right? Tell your friends to tell their friends that there is a history class going on YouTube free of charge where they can learn, the facts and basic things they need to know about the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, all right? I want to thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your likes. I appreciate you watching this video. And I hope that you do not stop visiting my channel often. Alright, until next time, I remain Udoka Agrigoro, aka Udala Talks. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.